Muy bien, bienvenidos a todos los presentes. Vamos a dar
Welcome, everyone. We will begin today's session. Today we have Sergio Peñafiel. He's leader from the technical team and also of the development team for Paxel for the regional public goods, as well as for the digital trust frameworks. So we will be working with your teams. Today, we will be having a continuation of last week's topic in relation to the WHO Digital Trust Framework and also about the GDHCN. Today, we will review the onboarding process. We know it's not easy. We were working with this with the teams of the 2024 Conectaton teams. The idea is to reinforce that process today. The meeting will be recorded, and those of you that are participating in the 2025 version of Conectaton, you can use this session to work with your monitors, and the idea is to also generate keys. The digital trust framework of the WHO for digital certificates is in a development environment. So this is an opportunity to learn of how do you create the keys, and this is done in jointly with the PAHO team in order to go into productive environments. That's a recurring question. So the idea is that we should undertake that process. So without further ado, I give the floor to Sergio Peñafiel. Thank you, Carlos, for the presentation. As Carlos was saying, the idea of this workshop is to continue with the one of last week presented by Carl in terms of the trust frameworks. So the idea is how we can do an onboarding. As Carlos said, these two go hand in hand. One is the administrative path with the letters that you need to send to be approved in the productive environment of the digital network. But the other one is the path is the technical one and how you generate keys, what kind of guarantees we should have, and that's what we will be seeing today. And mainly in an development environment. So just to give you a little bit of context, how this aligns with the Conectaton, if we remember in track 1, we have one part that is going from an IPF to VHL. And we have a node that does this transformation, but that service needed to sign that document and to generate this QR code. So in this part, specifically in this private key, that's where we need to enroll this digital trust framework. So we know that they actually do belong to a person from this trust framework. And in this mainly impacts this part of the flow. That's why it's important that you check this. And as I was mentioning before, for the Conectaton, we will be using the development or DEV environment. The network has 3 environments, the development one, then QAT, and finally the production one. The first two, as their name says, are for development and testing. They're pre-productive. And the last one is for actual applications to the real world and exchange of certificates with valid information. So as where this is aiming at the Conectaton, but we don't want to stop with just the administrative path. So we will use dev in the network. We have a special domain for our use cases, which is called PH4H. So we will be using this one in this trust framework. network. The idea of today is to do something practical, and we will see what are all the steps that you have to take in order to enroll in this PH4H domain of the trust network. For that, there are instructions, onboarding instructions that are in this page. I will show you that right now. This is a page that probably you saw it in the previous presentation, which is the implementation of OMS or WHO for the Smart Trust. Here, I'm already in the correct page, which is deployment and onboarding checklist. This has all the steps on how you do the onboarding process. This is the main page where you will be able to go and look for the information that you need and follow the steps. And as it says here, there's a diagram of the process. It's an overview, general overview. So if we see this diagram in detail, we begin with a repository. You need to have a repository that's a copy of the template repository that the WHO provides. So you do a copy or a clone of this local repository on a device, such as the ones you normally use, or maybe in a server. And here we will work on this. On the same remote repository, we need to invite a user, which is called TNG-bot, that will check that we are actually complying with all of the requirements. And they will give us the approval. So that's the first part of the setup of the repository. Once you have that, we also need to generate a GPG key that is used to sign the commits and the flags that we will have in this repository. One of the requirements of the trust network to be accepted is that the commits and tabs are duly verified. So you don't do it from any equipment, but on the one that we are actually working. So we need to generate the keys and upload them in each and in order to have that verification. Then we create the certificates for the development and user acceptance testing environments. You can have self-signed certificates, and that is what we actually recommend because it's fast and easy to work with at the beginning. And this repository even comes with a script that allows you to generate all of the certificates. So there are configuration parameters that says from what country I am, what institution, the user, and other data. And after that, we execute the script, and this generates all of the certificates that we need, both the public keys and private keys. The public keys, well, we have our private keys, and that's what we will use to sign the documents, and we use them to authorize those transactions. But you need to share the public keys with the remaining network. So we need to move these certificates to certain specific directories. And once we do that, we need to do a commit. After doing that commit and verifying that everything is okay with the repository, we need to do a request by means of an email to the support team of the trust network, saying that you want to be part of the network and tell them what kind of environment you're working in. And with that, you need to wait for their answer. Normally, it could take a couple of days or a week. When you have their answer, we will appear in the repository with the information we uploaded. So now we are part of that trust network in that environment. Then we check if we can access the network doing a GET request to obtain the trust list and the certificates of the other countries. And the last step, which is to add those signature certificates, that is not done in the repository, but interacting with the trust network. When I say I will add the certificate, and you know who I am because of the keys that I uploaded. So today, the idea is to do a practical demo of doing everything up to step number 7, which is to send the email, because those are the steps that we can do locally and we don't depend on them answering us. So steps 7, 8, and 9, I will show you, but we won't be able to see them live. But the other ones, you can do them. So the idea is to begin doing this in a practical fashion. And for that, I will share the screen. So as I said before, the first thing is that we need to create a private repository, clone the template, invite TNGBot, and create the GPG key. Here I'm in GitHub. It has to be a GitHub private repository. So here you create a new repository. I will create this under create, and the name of the repository normally looks like this. It has this name, TNG-participant- and then the code of the country could be 2 or 3 letters. The 3-letter one is recommended. For this case, I will use a fictitious country called XCL that doesn't exist, but it's useful for us to do the entire exercise. But you would have to do the code of your country, like Ecuador would be SCU, and the repository has to be private. So you have to maintain it private, and for the rest, it's not necessary to change that. Here I have the URL of my repository. It's empty because right now I don't have anything in particular. So in a terminal, what I'll do is clone it. It gives me a warning. I am within the repository and it's empty, as we mentioned before. So there is a template, a repository that the people from the trust network provides us with, and it's this one. I will show you. So first you see how it looks like. This is the template, TNG participant template, that has the scripts to generate the certificates and also the directories where you need to put the information. Here we need to put this. So we take this repository template and we add it to a repository. So what they suggest here is to put a remote with the template, which is a recommended way of doing this. Once that I add this, I need to do a pull to bring all of the data from this repository. I did a pull of this repository template, and now I see that I have the same files that I said before, the onboarding and scripts folders, the README, and the text configuration. So we have, therefore, we have created a private repository, and we have cloned from the template repository. Then we need to invite this TNG-bot participant. In the repository, if we go to settings, collaboration and teams, it's asking for an authentication code. Here we can add participants, and we have to add TNG-bot dev for the development environments and UAT. We look for it. We mark that it's only for read. I think this one only needs read, and there it is. So obviously it says that their answer is still pending, but then it appears as if it was one more participant. So with that, we would complete the next step, which is to invite the bot into our repository. And then it starts talking about the GPG key. It's used to sign and validate the commits and tags in the repository. I would say that this is the step that is a little bit more complicated because it's various steps that need to be followed, but they're all explained in this guide. It's not really difficult to follow. It seems by using the utility GPG command allows you to generate these keys. So if I execute this, it creates the key. It'll ask me a few questions. For example, what type of key would I like to include? And what is used by default is okay, but here it asks us to be RSA. Here, the size of the key, they suggest to you 4096 or 096. For expiry, we can tell it not to expire. If it's accepted, there's no problem with that. So we verify that everything is okay. This is where it asks for the real name. And as the instructions say, we need to use the username of Git, which is create-cl. The email address is also the email associated to the account. So this information is important to match what we have in the repository. And here it shows us a preview. We say everything's fine. And the last one is to create a passphrase, which is like a password that will create all of these values.
Sí, entonces, creo que no lo escribí bien, disculpe.
I think I didn't write it well. That's it. And then it generates the GPG key in a correctly. So what we need to do now is to check the data of this key. For that, we have this other command, and this command will give me a list with all of the keys that I have in this device. Specifically, this is the one that we just created with a date, and it is the one that we will use. So if you have more than one, it appears here, but this is the one we just created. Therefore, having this, what we need to have is the ID, and the ID is what we have here in the type of encryption. So we copy this ID because we will need it, and we need to execute this other command to see the content of that key. So I execute this command with a key ID that we have there, and what it gives me is this certificate, which is basically a public key that then I can share. There's no problem with that. And I can show it here because this is what we need to share both with GitHub in order to verify the commits and tabs, and then with the people of support that they can also verify that this was the key with which all of the other credentials were created. And as it says here, we will begin here with this and that it ends with that. And we need to add this to the accountability. These are the steps. So we go to settings. This is the key. I had some before, but you can add another one. The title would be Workshop 2025. And we need to copy and paste all of this. Then it appears like it has been added. So with that, then we're ready to continue. And that's how we complete the last part that we needed in the setup of this repository. Maybe this is the most difficult step because if you're not used to working with these keys to sign commits, that's something new. But otherwise, well, the good thing is that it does it once and then it's already stored in your device. Now comes the part of creating the certificates. And as I said before, in the repository, we have this folder of scripts where we have scripts to generate these self-signed certificates. You will find this command here, gen all certs, that will allow you to generate all certificates. As I said before, you need to change this configuration, the dn underscore template.cnf, and then execute these files. So we can change this file. As you can see, these are data from our country where we're doing, to which we're doing the onboarding, and also the institution. The country here was Excel. This, well, here you should put the state, the city. I'm in Santiago right now. The organization, we can put Raxel or Ministry of Health. The organization, like technical team, and the common name. You can put any name you want. We'll put Raxel Technical Team.
problema con eso.
There's not a problem with that. So we save it, we verify that everything's okay, and with this, as I said before, we need to execute this folder, this file, and for that, we need to see that we're okay. These steps are also in the guide. Here, what we're changing is the variable names, and then we're executing the gen all certs, having this file as an attribute and parameter. So when we execute this, that's the end of it. It doesn't take much time. And as you can see, what's new is that this directory appears with the generated certificates. I will see here that all the certificates are there. Specifically, I have the SCA key, the TLS, and the app. That are all of the certificates that you need, plus this one that was added recently, but we don't need it for our development environment. And there's in the two versions, the key that are the private keys and the PEMs that are the public keys. For example, if you open these,
Sí, ahí está. Y van a ver entonces que
you will then see that the certificate has the other ones that we just added. The country is okay, which is very important. And the other information is as we added it. And these are self-signed certificates, but with all the cryptographic rules that the network requires in order that they can be used. So now comes the last part, that it is to prepare the files. So we need to find these 4 files, the ones that we just generated. If you see, these are all the public keys, the ones that end in .pem, and we have to move them to this specific directory. But changing DCC by PH4H. I go back to this repository, and there's another folder here called onboarding. In onboarding, you will find DCC and DDCC from previous years. But what we need to do here is create a folder called PH4H. And in this folder, we should leave the certificates. So within PH4H, here, we need to create all of the other folders, like the SCA folder, the app folder, and the TLS folder. So the only thing missing now is to move the certificates as it says here. So I will move what we have here, the SCA.PEM. It's important that they end in PEM. And then we will leave it onboarding PH4H SCA. So we have to repeat the same as for the app.pem. And in the app directory, I have to repeat the same here in order to SCA.pem and leave it in the TLS directory. And finally, with the TL, I have also to leave it in the TLS directory. So by doing this, we can see how our directory is in the end. There you will see it. Within the onboarding SCA, we will find this. We have two files in the TLS, and in up, we have the four that are required. So we have already prepared the folders with the keys ready to be uploaded. So we met these three steps. We modified the configuration files, we executed the script, and what's coming now is to upload these changes into the repository. And for that, first we need to add the GPG key as a signature method for the commits. We need to add, commit, and push to the repository, then create a tag. And when we are okay with that one, and then make sure that everything is in the GitHub. So we will go with the next steps. Here in the guide, you will also find the steps for production. You can skip this. They're longer than the ones that we just made, but we don't need it. So we skip this and we get to provide. First, how to upload the changes. So first, we need to get to the GPG keys. I got two keys. This is the one I'm using now. And what I need to do is to execute this command with the ID that I have here for the key. This is the ID. I'll copy it because this is the ID that I need to use. So I put config user and signing key. Here I need to paste this key. With that, we should all be ready to upload these changes. And we can see here that if the key was duly configured. I had done this already, which is to get your Git username and your email ID. I had it done already, but just in case, we will see how to do it. You have a username, Sergio Peñafiel, my email, sergio@create.cl, which is my email. Once I have done that, I can do the add. We can do a status here to see what we changed. We changed the configuration folder. We did this, and we also have the certificates generated in that folder. So we add that, then we leave a message. This is important. I was doing that on purpose, and something that you need to ensure to do is that do not upload the .key files, because it's telling me I'm uploading the private keys. We should safeguard them and not upload them. I haven't uploaded anything to the repository yet. Everything is local right now, but we don't want that to happen. So I go there to commit. Now everything is as it was before. So I need to make sure not to upload this. I will do a selective add in my configuration file and everything that is in onboarding. Now, if you see, I can upload this, but I'm excluding these ones that are the files that have the private keys. Now I repeat what I had done before, and now it shows me that I'm uploading what is correct, and then I can do a push to that a branch of my repository. So this was uploaded, then I could go back here to the repository. And we see that the commit appears here with the testing certificates for onboarding. We can go verify them. I click here, I go to the folder, and I see that that's where the corresponding certificates are. So everything is okay. So those are the first two steps: to create the key and do the commit and push to the repository. So what remains is to create a verified tag and to make sure that everything is okay. To create a tag and telling the people of the trust network that this is the commit they need to do, we need to uh, execute this command, which is tag. We put a name on it. For example, version 1.0, and the same message that's there, my sign 1.0 tag. And this gives you an error because it couldn't find the GPG key to be signed. And there is a variable in the environment that is not well configured. So let me check.
Dame un segundo. Bueno, eso para mostrarle también que estamos haciendo todo en vivo.
Also, this is to show you that we're doing everything live right now. This is probably what's missing. As I said before, this is a Mac instruction because GPG doesn't know where to go looking for sometimes for that information. So you need to do the passphrase. You put your passphrase code. If I remember what it was, and yes, okay, so we're okay. Now in the tag, we see that's where it is with all of the certificates and the signature that it's being done by ourselves. Then we just need to put the git push tags. So what this will do is that in the repository, if I go look here, it will say that it has one tag, the one that we just created, and that tag will appear with this verified medal. So I verify that I was the one who did this commit and this tag, and this is part of the guarantees that are required to get into this trust network. So if you do all that, you're quite okay, and because then you need to send an email, which is the part that you needed to do, but we won't do this live because we won't have an immediate answer. But you need to send an email to this email address where you say would like to request the onboarding of the dev environment for the GDHCN with the following details. Then you put the code of your country, and this is important. You need to send the GPG public key. If you forgot how to do it, you do it this way. Here, I don't have the history of this, but I can go up in the guide.
Ya, bueno, ahí está. Esto es lo que le tienen que enviar, ¿cierto? Porque con
This is what they need to send, because with that information, they do a match. That's what I'm sending is what it's signed in the tag. So then they make sure that whoever is sending the email is the one that did all the work of creating the keys. So you send that 3 pieces of information that is for Conectaton for this year, and they will answer you in a couple of days telling you if everything is okay, or if there was an error, they will let you know and they will request you to do the changes. But it needs to have with that verified metal, and you shouldn't have any problem. And lastly, as I said, this is the diagram again. We saw this part that's up here until we generate the email, the request email, and the rest we can't do because we need to have the approval, is to get the get trust list and create a new certificate. But I will show you how this is to see the trust list. Basically, you just do a request in HTTPS to this URL with your TLS certificate that you did once you're onboarded, and it should give you back this information. It's a very long list because all of the countries are here, but they are filtered by PH4H and by DSC. If you do that, it should give you a shorter list. And you can check if you're there and if you're in that list. If that works, that means that the certificate is already enrolled and in the trust list. And finally is to generate and upload a DSC certificate. And there are various commands here that I put it in order to generate a new signature certificate, and you can send it yourself. You don't need to do the repository steps once again. Basically, you just go to the trust list and saying, I want to send you this new certificate. And you have a domain list. You can do it directly by the API. You don't need it to do it through the repository. So with that, that's the end of the onboarding process. If you did all of this, you are in the trust list and you can work for the generation of the HCL or for any other thing where you need to use. We have some questions that might be relevant. The first one, and many of you are asking, if I already did the onboarding last year, can I use the same keys? Yes, the keys are still in force. They last around 3 years. So last year's keys are still in force, and you can skip this step. Another frequent question, if I lost my keys of last year, what can I do? Unfortunately, like we saw, the private keys are not supported, but in this repository, where I created these keys. So if you don't have this anymore, there's no way you can recover them. In that case, you have to do this onboarding step once again from scratch, as we saw in this presentation. And people from the trust network will replace the old keys with the new keys, and you will have the new keys to work with. And the last question, if, despite that I have last year's keys, is it recommendable to generate new keys for this year? The answer is that no. For the first ones that are generated here, what we saw live, SCA up and TLS, it is recommended to keep them and use the same ones as last year because they last around 3 years. So it's not necessary to do the onboarding step again. But if you want for the DSC, yes, it is recommended to generate a new one. It is the last step that I showed you. And in fact, the guide recommends to rotate and every 6 months these DSCs. So you can do this last step if you want. But as I said before, the keys last around 2, 3 years. So you can use last year's to sign if you have them and if you prefer. Those are the prepared questions that I had, but I can hear also your other questions. There are some questions in the chat. The first question, yes, if you have last year's keys and you have access to them, you can use last year's keys. Yes, in the Conectaton, we will use the dev environment. The UAT is more for having an environment prior to Conectaton and prior to go to production. And as I said before, the dev and UAT environments can have self-signed certificates. In fact, the scripts that we executed now have generate a self-signed certificate, so there would not be a problem with that. Any other question, Jorge? Hi, Carlos. Hi, Sergio. One question. These keys, all of this, can I do it in any device? And or I have it to do it in a specific device or where I will be working on? You can do it in any machine. I was doing it in my private computer, and then I just move them to a server where we have all of the information. So you can move them. There's not a problem. In theory, I just move the private ones. Yes, the private ones. And you also said that afterwards you could generate more keys, and if you can explain. If we see what we uploaded in the repository, these were the keys of SCA, which is the one that authorizes everything. TLS is for connection, and up is to upload data. So we don't have the DS6. That's the DCS. With that, we sign the certificates and the vaccination certificates. So the DSC, you need to make it locally and then upload it into the trust network. You don't do it through the repository. And to do it, upload it through the trust network, you need to do a post on this endpoint and putting the information of the certificate and in what domain it will be. And that is it. I put this in a very summarized way, but everything is very much well explained in this page. And this page also has videos Well, the page is in English and the videos are in English, but you can see the videos, and the videos also follow the same steps, even not so fast as I did, so you can have a clear understanding of how to do it. Carlos, these videos and the previous video and this video, when will you upload them in order to check them out? In Raxel's YouTube channel, yes, they're up to date and we have until the last session. We expect to upload this one between today and tomorrow. Thank you, Sergio. We will upload the presentation and the video, but if you want to advance, there's a link to this page that has all of the videos and steps if you want to check that. Any additional question? We still have 5 minutes. Without further questions, then this will be available in the Raxel's YouTube channel. There's a question from Adriana there. The planning of miles, so that's June. Well, we have raised prints for this year's Conectaton from April till June. The focus in general terms is that at the end of the month, in maybe a week and a half, to get to the status that we had in Bogota. Node uploaded, generating valid IPSs, and also VHLs. I think we also the ones of VC in the milestones. The idea was to have that circuit as complete as possible because now comes the application part and we need to start applying the IPS from the perspective of the patient that moves in different countries. So around middle of July, we have the times to start with the first version of that application. So we will have 2 more weeks of work in order to have this level of maturity related to the Conectaton and the level we had in Bogota. It's important because the idea is that you focus on working in all of these components that will be used to take this, personalize them with the systems, and we know that's very demanding. The idea is that you can concentrate doing that and that you don't need to battle with milestones that are related to things that we kind of manage in the region. So the call is to get updated, be up to date with all of these issues if you have the keys and the keys are working well, because that's a step that you will not need to use again. If you don't have the keys, is the idea with this tutorial, you can update them and have valid keys to generate those vaccination certificates and VHLs. We need to test between us, among us. So as the IPS happens and the notes are updated, we can validate them among us. So there will be monitors to help us with all of this. I think that at the end of this month, we will do a cut over, a cut of this status, and we will have the typical slide of who are up to date, who are a little bit delayed, etc. So I give you a spoiler and tell you that that's coming. So please get up to date with everything because we want to privilege those aspects. And also probably the first deliverable of the safety team will be up. There will be safety improvements in the Docker that we have made available. We will receive those recommendations, and these will be impacted in the Docker. There's also novelties in the vaccination certificate, and we need to update the Docker. So we need to be as robust as possible before that. We had a window of time that, like a leeway, but I think that now that it's half a year gone, now at the end of the month, 6 months will be gone. So every week counts, and the idea is to be up to date. That's what I can say, Adriana. So the short answer is as soon as possible. But Ecuador is okay. Oscar has a question. The answer is that for the development environment is okay, but for other environments, you need that to be linked to an institutional, but for the environment, for dev, it could be anyone that you have available. I think it's the time, and now just to close, I would like to show you that everything is available in the YouTube channel. So this webinar should be uploaded tomorrow. I'll try that. At least I do it today. At least the Spanish version can be uploaded today, so you can use it with your monitors. It will be a very busy month of July. Probably will have one meeting every week. We are reinforcing the terminology, so the people from SNOMED will be helping out, like the use of the script, and there have been details that we have been adjusting, but there's reinforcement there too. The idea is to close well and reinforce these aspects that we know are a little bit complex and that don't depend 100% on us. So we can strengthen this and leave all this part of the tracks that is well known for the region as mature as possible. So we can begin this second semester with the novelties that have related to the use of the app PH4H and the concept of how we will update the IPSs. Let's not forget that as a region, we need to have a tool that updates the IPSs that can be generated by VHL, and that the IPS could be updated. And so the idea is to work among countries. So we will have one more component of difficulty, and we need to address that as soon as possible. So that is the call. So we will see you the first week of July, and we will be duly informing the dates and the link in the next meetings. And obviously, we will duly publish this. Thank you for participating today. Thank you, Sergio, for your presentation. This material will be very useful for the remaining activities that we'll have. And obviously, the people from Pajo can make the most of them too. Thank you, and take care. And the call is to be as updated as possible. Goodbye.